Genesis gives this man 4 verses. Chapter 5, verse 21 to verse 24. 35 words of Hebrew. That is the entire biography. 1,000 years later, he is an angel with 70 names, wearing a crown with the letters that made the world on it, sitting down where the text says nobody sits. This is how that happened. Start with the chapter he lives in. Genesis 5 is a metronome. A man is born, a man has sons, a man lives so many years, and then the same 3 Hebrew letters close the entry, YHWH, and he died. Adam, Seth, Enoch, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Methuselah, Lamech. 8 men, 8 identical closings. Enoch's entry is built the same way, and then it stops early. Careful here, because this is where most videos overreach. Noah is in this chapter too, and has no death formula either. The difference is that Genesis comes back later and closes Noah's in chapter 9. Enoch's it never closes. Here is the verse everything else is built on. Vayithalek Hanok et Elohim, ve'enenu, ki laka oto Elohim. 9 words. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Ve'enenu is not a poetic word. It is the ordinary particle of absence with a suffix on it. He is not there. Not vanished, not ascended, not transformed. Every major English version lands in the same place, and the agreement is the point. The Hebrew is not ambiguous. It is empty. And laka, took, is the plainest verb in the language. You take a wife with it. You take a stone with it. What it does not have here is a destination. 2 Kings uses that same verb for Elijah, then tells you exactly where he went. Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. Genesis gives Enoch the verb and withholds the address. And the number. He lives 365 years, in a chapter where everyone else lives 900 and more. The Hebrew says 65 years, then 300 more. The Greek says 165, then 200. Traditions that argue about every other figure here agree on the total. You will hear that 365 proves he came from a Babylonian sky god. That theory dates to 1903. It has been challenged in print, and 1st Enoch's own calendar is not 365 days. It is 364. Now watch the verse change languages. The Septuagint does not translate Genesis 5:24. It interprets it 3 times in one sentence. Walked with God becomes was well-pleasing to God. A spatial idiom turns into a moral verdict. And he was not becomes and he was not found, which implies somebody looked. And took becomes metathaken, transferred, a verb that presumes the destination the Hebrew never gave. Then Hebrews picks up that Greek and adds the sentence that settles it for most readers. By faith Enoch was translated, that he should not see death. That clause is in neither the Hebrew nor the Greek of Genesis. And the English word translated, in the Enoch sense, comes into our language through that Greek verb, not through Genesis. Meanwhile, the rabbis argued the other way entirely. Genesis Rabbah, section 25, Rabbi Ivu says, Enoch was capricious, sometimes righteous, sometimes wicked, and God took him while he was righteous, so it would stay that way. The oldest Jewish commentary on the verse argues he simply died. It takes 3 books to get from that empty verse to an angel. 3 languages, written centuries apart, none of them in most Bibles. First Enoch first, surviving whole only in Ge'ez, the liturgical language of Ethiopia. Its opening move is to give Enoch a job title Genesis never gives him, and it comes from the angels. Enoch, thou scribe of righteousness. Then the watchers do something you would not expect. They ask him to file paperwork. They besought me to draw up a petition for them that they might find forgiveness. He writes it and reads it aloud by the waters of Dan until he falls asleep. It is refused. From henceforth you shall not ascend into heaven unto all eternity. First Enoch does take him to the throne, a wall of crystal and fire, a house of ice with flame around it, a greater house inside that one, and on the throne the great glory, whose raiment shone more brightly than the sun. But read how he gets there. The text says it twice. I saw in my sleep. And the winds in the vision caused me to fly. It is a dream. The body stays on the ground. And this matters because even standing at the throne, first Enoch will not promote him. God's first words to him are, "Fear not, Enoch, thou righteous man and scribe of righteousness." A man, twice in one sentence, not an angel. Quick pause. If you want the version that names which book says what, subscribe. One film like this a week from the sources. Now, the strangest thing anyone ever did to this text, and it was a translator. Near the end of the book of parables, Enoch is brought before the head of days and, in the surviving Ethiopic, addressed directly. You are that son of man. Second person, to him, about him. R.H. Charles, whose 1912 translation is the one quoted all over the internet because it is out of copyright, changed it. He turned the second person into the third and inserted a bracketed lost passage that appears in no manuscript. He said so himself in his own footnote. Throughout the verse, I have changed the second person into the third. He thought the text was corrupted, and he was repairing it. Maybe he was right. The result is that the free translation everybody quotes is the one edition that edits out the moment the man is told he is the Son of Man. Book 2 does what First Enoch would not. It takes the body. 2 Enoch survives in Old Church Slavonic, and God tells Michael to take Enoch out of his earthly garments, anoint him with the good oil, and dress him in the garments of glory. Then the line that is the whole reason this book matters. And I gazed upon myself, and I was like one of his glorious ones. He has been changed. He is described as one of them, and he still has no name. The word Metatron does not appear in 1st Enoch or 2nd Enoch, not once. Here, he is simply sent back down with a deadline, 30 days to teach his household, and 366 books left behind him. Book 3, Hebrew this time, and a Hebrew name, Sefer Hechalot, the Book of the Palaces. A rabbi ascends, meets an angel, and asks the obvious question, what is your name? The answer is the reason we are here, because I am Enoch, the son of Jared. Then the promotions come in a rush. God builds him a throne, like the throne of glory, puts it at the door of the 7th palace, and sends out a herald. This is Metatron, my servant. I have made him a prince, and a ruler over all the princes of my kingdoms. A crown of 49 stones, and on it, written with a flaming stylus, the letters by which heaven and earth were created. The human body is not carried up, it is burned off. My flesh was changed into flames, my sinews into flaming fire, my bones into coals of burning juniper. And then the title that got this book into trouble for 1,500 years. He called me the Lesser YHWH in the presence of all his heavenly household. Now the part the thumbnails leave out. Enoch equals Metatron survives in 2 places. 3 Enoch, where the angel says it himself, and 1 line of Targum Pseudo-Jonathan, an Aramaic paraphrase that is late, 7th or 8th century at the earliest. Not the Bible, not the Talmud. And nobody can date 3 Enoch. Odeberg put its core in the 3rd century. Melich pushed it to the 9th or 10th. A 700-year argument about 1 book with no critical edition of it. Which brings us to the document that should have settled this, and does the opposite. Metatron is named in the Babylonian Talmud in exactly 3 passages: Hagiga 15a, Sanhedrin 38b, Avodah Zarah 3b. In none of them is he Enoch. In none is he a former human being at all. Hagiga 15a is the famous one, and it is misquoted constantly. A sage called Aher ascends and sees something. Read what the Talmud says he saw. Permission was granted to Metatron to sit and write down the merits of Israel. Not a throne. The Talmud never says throne. It says he was allowed to sit. And that is the scandal, because the tradition it cites is explicit. On high, there is no sitting. So Aher draws the conclusion the rabbis were afraid of. Perhaps, God forfend, there are 2 powers. He does not declare it. He raises it as a possibility, with a curse-averting formula built into the middle of his own sentence. The response is immediate. They led Metatron forth and punished him with 60 fiery lashes. The question they put to him is almost bureaucratic. Why didst thou not rise before him? The effect is theological. An angel who can be whipped is not a god. Then the Talmud does something colder. It gives the beaten angel permission to erase Aher's merits. The man who mistook him for a second power is damned by the angel he mistook. And the Palestinian Talmud tells the same story about the same man with no Metatron in it at all. The angel is a Babylonian addition. The throne and the title only arrive later, in 3rd Enoch, in a chapter most scholars think was added by a later hand. And a scholar would say, I have told this backwards. Yakir Paz argues Metatron never came from Enoch at all, that the name is Latin, Metator, the officer who rides ahead of an army and marks out where the camp will go, applied to the angel God sends ahead in Exodus, the one of whom it is said, my name is in him. A minority position, a serious one. So here is what we can actually say. 4 verses, a closing formula withheld, a verb with no destination, and then 1,000 years of writers standing in front of that gap, each one raising him a grade. Scribe, messenger, witness at the throne, one of the glorious ones, prince of the presence, the Lesser YHWH. And every time he goes up, somebody writes a chapter pulling him back down. 3 things repeated constantly that are not true. Metatron's cube is not ancient and not Jewish. The words cube and geometry do not appear anywhere in Odeberg's edition. No council banned the Book of Enoch. Nicaea produced a creed and 20 canons and never ruled on scripture. And the book was never lost. Ethiopia read it continuously, and Scaliger printed the Greek extracts in 1606. That is 167 years before James Bruce is supposed to have found it. I put this whole line of thinking, the Hermetic stream, the later teachers, what they actually wrote, into a book called The Law of Attraction, What They Actually Taught. 129 pages with a 30-day workbook. The link is in the description. If this was worth your time, subscribe. 1 of these a week from the sources. The last ones were Azazel, John D., Crowley. This is the man those rooms were trying to become. A man walked with God, and the text simply stopped writing about him. Everything after that is us.